Welcome to the panel discussion of Becoming Visible through teaching AANHPI history, which stands for Asian Americans, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders. My name is Su-Chen Liang. I will be co-hosting today's event with Guat Liang Creamer. I'm Taiwanese American, a mother of 2 adult children, an engineer, and a Newark resident for more than 25 years. While I was preparing for and participated in last year's panel discussion, Breaking the Silence, it became clear to me and others that education, and in particular, AANHPI history education, is key to reducing racial prejudice and violence. We have learned and witnessed that in time of crisis, whether political during World War II, economical in the late 1980s, terrorism related after 9/11, or health related from the recent pandemic. Frustration and suffering can lead people to pit themselves against each other, and it doesn't have to be this way. If we recognize that the AANHPI history and experience is an integral part of US history, then we're more likely to seek commonalities rather than differences, seek to understand rather than to judge when we encounter people of different ethnicities. Becoming Visible is inspired by the many grassroots efforts throughout the country during the past few years. This event is as much about raising the visibility of our community and building bridges with the rest of the country as it is about exploring and affirming our identities. And we have a very good and great panel today. Our panel consists of parents, students, teachers, and educators and community organizers. Some will be sharing their personal stories and perspectives, and some will share their experience in promoting diversity and teaching Asian American history in K-12 schools. We hope that through engaging in a broader community in this discussion, we can learn from each other and take advantage of many education resources out there to help Delaware K-12 schools to expand their curricula to include the teaching of AANHPI history. To kick off the panel discussion, I want to share with you a video of stories of a few Americans who are also Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. If you look past their heritage, there's no difference between their stories and the stories of the rest of Americans. So now I want to get into the main part of the program. So our first panelist is Dr. Nancy Fan. Nancy moved to the US from Taiwan when she was 3 years old. She's now a full-time OBGYN generalist at St. Francis Hospital in Wilmington. Nancy has held or is holding many leadership positions, including chair of the Delaware Healthcare Commission, president of the Medical Society of Delaware, and chair of the board for the Chinese School of Delaware. In her leadership positions, she has focused on educating her peers and colleagues on the concepts of diversity, quality, and inclusion in medicine. So with that, Nancy, now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Shu-Chan. And I think you all have my slides. And while that is being pulled up, I just want to thank Shu-Chan and Guat Lian for this opportunity to be able to speak at this event. I think it's very important that we have a broader reach about exactly all the factors that go into Peace Week. And that also makes us what makes us a multicultural and accepting society, especially here in Delaware. So as Shu-Chan mentioned, I have been in practice as a full-time OBGYN here in Delaware for the last 25 years. And in my leadership position at the Healthcare Commission, I have focused quite a bit on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I was actually born in the United States. I am a US citizen. I moved to Taiwan when I was a baby. Oh, excuse me. My dog wants to add in on that. And lived in Taiwan for 3 years and then came back to the United States. I apologize, everyone, for this. This is what happens with virtuals. It's either technical or you have additional audience. So having said that, my presentation is a little high level, speaking about what happens at the society level when we talk about changing things like education. I thought I would start with a short snapshot of what the state of Delaware looks like with our population. And I do apologize for the graphics on these images. It was hard for me to expand it big enough. I hope everybody is able to see them. It's starting with what our population actually looks like. So this particular graphic demonstrates that within Delaware itself, by the 2020 census, we comprise 5.1%, we being what they count as Asian demographics under the 2020 census survey. The breakdown by county, 7.1% live in Newcastle County, 3.8% live in Kent County, and 1.8% live in Sussex County. Of course, you know, when we talk about surveying data, it's only as good as who answers the surveys. So we always take into account that this is only skewed by, you know, how much data we can actually collect at any one time. I'm sure everybody knows the 2020 census was a challenge with the COVID pandemic. So we are hoping to use the best population information as we can. On to the next slide. This is actually talking about the percent change as to who identifies as Asian in combination, and that includes all Asian Americans, North Pacific Islanders, and Southeast Asians as a total population between 2010 and 2020. This is a dramatic change. There has been a 60.5% increase with almost a doubling of the population in Sussex County, upwards of 98%. Within Kent County, it was 62%, and with Newcastle County, it was 53%. I wanted to bring this to everybody's, information, because I think as we look at the state and we talk about topics of such concepts such as diversity and inclusion, we really need to recognize that whether you're 5%, 10%, 75%, you all make up our population. And when we talk about health outcomes, we need to acknowledge what goes into a good, healthy outcome. If you go to the next slide, please. Having said that, at the Healthcare Commission and in my work with the different physician organizations such as the Medical Society, I've truly tried to promote the concepts of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is defined as encompassing acceptance and respect and understanding that each individual is unique, recognizing individual differences. I'm going to jump to inclusion, which is really putting that concept and practice of diversity into action by creating an environment of involvement, respect, and connection. These are all very aspirational goals, but I also think they are very practical goals that can be achieved in a state such as Delaware, especially if we are able to do innovative changes in our social determinants of health. When you talk about the social determinants of health, if you can go to the next slide, please. This is what we mean by social determinant of health. It is everything that happens in society within a cultural aspect that may affect someone's well-being. That includes both how you access health and healthcare, the neighborhood you come from and the environment you live in, the economic stability that you achieve within your society or in your community, your education, which is very key, and we're using that as a lever today when we talk about how we can improve our social determinants of health, and then the social and community context that the social determinant of health play in. When I look at this, I recognize that one of the emerging trends in being able to address health disparities in Delaware is acknowledging how these social determinants of health and lack of cultural awareness has led to less quality of care for specific populations and therefore actually poor health outcomes. This lack of awareness has been well documented, can lead to not just a racial bias in both our perception of other people's healthcare needs, but also in how we address those healthcare needs, but also systemic racism in multiple areas of these social determinants of health, both in housing, which is our neighborhood, in our education, in our economic stability. When we talk about that systemic racism, we have to recognize that those factors contribute significantly to what we define as health inequity. Health inequity really is talking about the ability of everybody to access the same level of health. And so having said that, when we look at what determines health inequities, we really want to determine not just are they ill, what illness are they looking at, but how do they get there? Who is this person in front of me? Another area that
we have 45 seconds left on your time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another area that we want to be able to speak about is when we have greater cultural awareness and greater acknowledgement of the importance and effect of diversity and inclusion within a society that is achievable by doing that on education on all different levels, whether it's at the primary education level, whether it's at the secondary education level, or whether it's at the graduate education level. Reaching these goals of greater acceptance and being able to recognize that individuals are unique can lead to an overall equity that can change the socioeconomic factors. And by leveraging the important and very impactful area of education through greater awareness will help improve that inclusivity that improves our health outcomes. I want to thank everyone, and yes, we will be taking questions at the end, as I understand. Thank you, Sichian.
Thank you, Nancy. Sorry to rush you through just a little bit. I think you were able to cover all the things you want to share. So our next panelist is Samantha.
Hello.
Samantha was born in Wilmington, Delaware, and is currently a 12th grader at the Charter School of Wilmington. Last year, she graduated from the Chinese School of Delaware. She has received several awards and scholarships from Chinese schools at both local and regional levels. And she feels that her formal education does not cover all the experiences and history of Asian Americans. She would like to see early exposure to different cultures in schools and learn how these different cultures have made positive impact on the history of America. With that, I'll turn it over to Samantha.
All right. Hello, my name is Samantha Smith, and as you heard, I am a senior at the Charter School of Wilmington. I have been going to the Chinese School of Delaware for 12 years, and I did graduate last year. And I spent my whole life in Delaware, so I hope that gives me a pretty good background on the education system here. And so I would like to bring my personal experience to the table here. Growing up in Delaware and going to elementary and middle school here, I felt that the history that I've learned has been very Eurocentric. We have not paid very much attention to other cultures, even those that are within our own society today. It's been pretty hard to feel included because I feel like I wasn't represented. I remember anytime someone Asian was mentioned or something Asian was mentioned in class, I would get really excited, and the disappointment that would follow because we would only brush over the topic and not go into as much depth as I would hope. And so certain significant events in American history that have involved Asian Americans, I feel, have not been included in our education. And that has really obscured our understanding of Asian Americans, which has made it harder to build relationships outside of the community because other people have not had exposure to the struggles or oppressions that Asian people have faced in America. Because for certain examples, I can think of the Japanese internment camps. I remember the first time I heard of them ever in a formal setting in my classes at school was last year when I was a junior. So we were already 16 years old, and that was the first time I had ever heard of them within a formal setting. And the only education I had ever gotten on them was outside of school. So I feel like students who haven't gotten that exposure because of their own personal research are missing the opportunity to learn more about our communities and building kind of an empathy and relationship with us. Furthermore, being biracial has been a major part of my life for me, including being a minority within my school as one of the few Asian students within my elementary and middle schools. And this has really affected my life because it's made it hard for me to feel accepted into any certain communities. And I'm sure that this is very relatable for other students who have a similar background to me. Because on one hand, I would be getting insensitive jokes or remarks about my Chinese heritage, but then I would feel excluded by Asian students in my community because I was half white. And so I feel like if we educate people on Asian American history and our inclusion and how we are involved in American history, it can really open up people's minds and understandings and create greater acceptance for students like me within every community. And it'll help build relationships within our society. And that's basically all I wanted to touch on.
Yeah, thank you very much for your candidness. And yep, my daughter is also biracial, so I understand some of the things you describe your feelings. Okay, so now let's move on to the next speaker. Hong Song Tegler was born in China, and she moved to the US in 2008. She received her master's degree in teaching from Towson University. She has been an educator for more than 25 years, both as an English instructor at the college level and a Chinese language teacher in K-12 schools. She currently teaches Chinese language at the Newark Charter School and is an advisor for the National Chinese Honor Society.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet everyone here. My speaker will be short because Misha already had almost all of my words as from my teacher. So this is a topic I often had with my students. Like during these years I work in America, I've been always so surprised at how little my students know about Asian history and Asian culture. Like I taught English and English culture in China for almost 14 years, and compare with how much Chinese students know about the whole world, with how little the American students know about the rest part of the world other than America. It always surprised me is why, why can't we do something to change this, to give the American kids some chance to really know the rest of the world, which is different from America, which they need to know the difference. And like in my AP Chinese and Chinese 5 level, I mentioned the Silk Road. All they know is a very, very brief thing, general thing about Silk Road. And they really didn't know the deep influence, the huge influence in culture, in religion, in all the other ways. They only know, oh, Silk Road, that's it. So only that word maybe. So that always surprised me and make me a little bit disappointed. And what I want to mention here is that when I have talked with my students, not only the Asian students, they want to know about their own history in America, also like the other groups of students, they are very curious and interested in knowing this too. So I think, from the strong interest from all the students from my school, because the kids in my school, they're curious about learning. They want to know. So why not we, it's really high time, I think, that our curriculum need to include Asian history and to give our students the chance to know about the rest of the world and to understand people. And they realize, the students, when I talk with them, they say, this will benefit us so much. That's what they told me. They say, are you guys really want to know about the Asian history? Why? Ms. Tagler, this will eventually benefit us not only in our career in the future, but also in our daily communication, how we can have a successful communication with people if we don't know their culture. So this is really will be a very meaningful and valuable thing that we do if we can eventually get the Asian history written in our curriculum. And also my student mentioned that, it's not the history, the teacher's fault. It's our curriculum doesn't have it. The teacher wants to teach. It's the curriculum. It doesn't have it. So I think we are doing a very, very meaningful thing here. I just, my purpose today is just how strong interest my students have to learn about the history of Asian people. And and I can't wait to see the success. Thank you.
Thanks, Hong-Mei. Okay, so move on to our fourth speaker panelist, Charanjit Singh Minhas. Was born and raised in India. He founded 2 software companies in Delaware, Techstrom Inc. and Quality Inc. He's a strong community leader and activist, working tirelessly to promote peace, create awareness about climate change and environmental injustices. Charanjit is also the founder and chairman of the Delaware Sikh Coalition, and he currently serves on the board of Delaware Interfaith Power and Light. For Charanjit, we do have a pre-recorded video, so let's play the video.
Welcome. Thank you for strengthening peace by your participation in Peace Week Delaware. Before I talk about Sikhs, I want to highlight a few things about Asia, the continent in which Sikhism, currently the world's 5th largest religion, was born. Asia is the largest continent on Earth. It has almost 30% of the planet's land area. Asia is the most populous continent on Earth. It is host to 60% of the total global population. Asia isn't only the largest and most populous continent, but also a continent of great diversity. Religious diversity. Asia is the most religiously diverse continent. The world's largest organized religions were born in Asia: Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Judaism, Jainism, Baha'i, and Zoroastrianism. Language diversity. In Asia's 49 countries, 2,300 languages are spoken. 1,600 of them are used in India alone. Climate diversity. The coldest and the hottest places on the earth are in Asia. Rain diversity. While the earth's wettest places are in Asia, it also has the second largest desert on the planet. I offer these facts to help our fellow Americans understand why we Asian Americans are so diverse in our looks, clothing, food, religion, and politics. Among those cultures are Sikhs, the subject of my talk today. There are nearly 30 million Sikhs worldwide today, and most live in the Indian state of Punjab. 90% of the people who wear turbans in the US are Sikhs. If you ask Sikhs about their religion, the first thing you will hear is their belief in Ek Onkar, the oneness of God. The second is that Sikh men wear turbans to cover their long hair, an article of faith that tragically became a target after 9/11. Sikhism is an independent, it isn't a branch, offshoot, sect, or denomination of any other faith. 550 years young religion that originated in India. The founder of the religion was Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Have you heard of 110-year-old Fauja Singh? The man who holds multiple world records in marathon running for seniors. Or of Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was the Prime Minister of India for 10 years. Now, what is common in their names? Singh. The last names are Singh. Singh means lion. However, in my name, Charanjit Singh Minhas, Singh is in the middle. Conclusion. All Sikh males are Singhs in either their last name or middle names. Sikh females use Kaur as part of their name. It means princes. Some of you may have heard of Bellary Kaur, the revolutionary love lady. She is a Sikh and her last name is Kaur. Many of you may know Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina. She was born into a Sikh family. Her original name was Namrata Kaur Randhawa. Kaur was her middle name. Like men, Sikh women use Kaur as their middle or last name. Sikh migration to North America began in the late 1800s. Initially, Sikhs moved to the West Coast and later to New York. In these images, on top left, we were the first and most successful farmers on the West Coast. Sikhs also helped build the railroads and worked as manual laborers and in the sawmills. Today, the largest peach, raisin, okra, and pistachio farms are owned by Sikh Americans. Top right, the Stockton Gurdwara, a Sikh house of worship, was the first Sikh house of worship founded in the US in 1912. Bottom left, Dalip Singh Sandh, the first ever Asian American congressman, was of Sikh heritage and elected in 1957. Bottom right, Bhagat Singh Thind applied for citizenship when he was an enlisted member of the US Army in 1918. His citizenship was rescinded in 1923 because of his non-Caucasian status. After battling for over a decade, Thind was finally given citizenship only because he was a World War I veteran. Narinder Singh Kapani. Fiber optics and his name go together. This is what New York Times said when he died last year. Closer to home, Sikhs have been living in Delaware for the last 50 years. Many are entrepreneurs, software engineers, lawyers, physicians, and academicians. We have 2 gurdwaras or Sikh temples in Delaware. Sikhs in the state regularly take part in interfaith activities. We organize the annual Delaware Peace Walk on Main Street in Newark. We participate in interfaith Thanksgiving services. We serve the homeless and food insecure every month in Hope Dining Room on the 4th Friday. We do the same near the Amtrak train station every last Saturday of the month. We served those lodged in Red Roof Inn on Route 896 by the state during the pandemic twice a week. We are part of peace vigils and prayers in the wake of senseless acts of violence, such as the Tree of Life shootings in Pittsburgh, Christchurch, New Zealand shootings in mosques, and Oak Creek, Wisconsin Sikh temple shootings. This legacy of service is a key element of Sikhism and reflects the words of founder Guru Nanak. If the people use the wealth bestowed on them by God for themselves alone or for treasuring it, it is like a corpse. But if they decide to share it with others, it becomes sacred food. Thank you.
Thanks, Charanjit, for the review, for the sharing of all the experiences and contributions from the Sikh American community.
Thank you.
Yes, so we're going to have a quick break, 3 minutes break, and then we'll come back. We have a short video to share.
We are
Okinawan,
Indonesian, Iranian,
Punjabi,
Filipino,
Korean.
Japanese and Chinese.
We are American.
Our diversity makes us stronger.
Our cultures are vast. Our communities resilient.
there's been enough hate.
Now it's time to heal.
As Americans,
Let's help each other
let's respect each other, unite as a country,
and stand together.
My name is Guadlian, and I'm so honored to come after that fun music. I hope it woke everybody up. It certainly woke me up. So welcome to the second half of the program. My name is Guadlian, and I'm a Malaysian-born U.S. citizen who's currently retired, and I live in Newark, Delaware, with my wife, dog, and 2 cats. So I've been in North America since 1976. And, well, right now I'm involved with the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Newark, Delaware, in its social justice initiatives. And that includes planning events such as Becoming Visible to raise awareness of cultural diversity and its attendant issues in our local community. So with that, I'd like to introduce Laura. And Laura Hoke Prubaka is going to talk about and give an overview of the Asian American Education Project, or AAEP. Now, Laura is a Southeast Asian educator who is committed to dismantling racism and promoting equity in the field of education. Now, she has a first-hand experience of being a first-generation college graduate, and she is the daughter of Cambodian genocide refugees. She is excited to share her passion for diverse representation in school curriculum as someone who was the first in her family to go through the American public school system as a student and is now an educator in it. Now, she has been working in education for 10 years and has taught in various educational settings, from elementary to high school to now school administration in Chicago. Now, Laura has been involved in the implementation of the TEACH Act in Illinois. Now, TEACH stands for Teaching Equitable Asian American Community History. She serves as the Midwest and East Coast Regional Coordinator for the Asian American Education Project, which she will be talking about right now. Laura, it's up to you now.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me also make sure I share my sound. Alrighty, can everyone see my screen? Okay, see a couple headshots. All right, perfect. All right, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. So I am Laura Hope Prabhakar. I will be giving you a quick overview of just what we have to offer at the Asian American Education Project. And then you'll see contact information on the screen right here, but you also will see it later on at the end of the presentation. All right, so you will notice that I will be referring to our community as APIDA throughout our presentation. So I do want to go over what that stands for, what that means. And so at the Asian American Education Project, we are choosing to use APIDA to really emphasize that while we all have a collective strength, we also all have very individual experiences. And so this really does highlight and incorporate the different experiences that each community within the APIDA community has experienced. So the A in APIDA stands for Asian, so that would include the Far East Asians, the Southeast Asians, and the Central Asians. We then have the P and the I standing for our Pacific Islanders, which is thousands of islands. Then we have the DAISY, which is the Indian subcontinent or the South Asian population, including India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, etc. And then American, to also highlight that many of us do identify as American, or versus also having heritage countries as well. The term APIDA also allows the incorporation of the intersections of gender, religion, sexuality, social economic status, citizenship status as well. All right, so a little bit about who we are. So Pat and Stuart Quo, I know Pat probably doesn't want to be put on the spot, but she is here in this event tonight as well. So they have been working on the curriculum project since 2006, starting with creating lesson plans based on Stuart's book, Untold Civil Rights Stories, and the 2020 PBS docuseries titled Asian Americans. Our goal is we aim to reach 1 million students nationwide in the next 5 to 7 years. We've partnered up with UCLA Asian American Studies Center, Stanford University Program on the International and Cross-Cultural Education, which we just abbreviate to SPICE, and the PBS Learning Media for resources and lesson plans. All right. Instead of just talking through this slide, I actually will show you what is on our website so that you can hopefully have a chance to be able to explore some more as well. And I can also drop it in the chat later on. So we have over 50 lesson plans. So that this is what our main website looks like. It is broken up by grades, subjects, time periods, and topics. So this is for educators teaching across all the different grade levels to be able to access. When you click on lesson plans and curriculum, you'll be able to see the different lesson plans. So for example, if I wanted to teach on a lesson for like between the years of 1850s to 1920s, I would be able to have access to all these different lessons. Under the Teacher's Guide thematic units is where you'll be able to find our main themes of citizenship, civil rights, identity, immigration, and racism, to really be able to incorporate this into already existing history that is taught in schools. We offer free professional development workshops for educators and for the general public. You would just need to navigate to the professional development workshop tab, scroll down to be able to see and to log in and to also see the class catalog of when we're offering the workshops and what the topics will be covered in those workshops. All of our information and our resources from those workshops are also listed on our website. And then lastly, we do have an activity booklet available to essentially, like, this includes like fun activities and worksheets that may or may not necessarily be incorporated into curriculum, but it's like a fun way. For example, we have crossword puzzles for students to, you know, be able to engage in a way that is fun and exciting for them while still being able to learn about the important history of the PETA community. All right. Next. Oh, yes. Question? Yes. Oh, okay. Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, as many of us may know, are one of the fastest growing populations in the US, and that is why our work matters. In 2021, APITAs are 7.2% of the US population and are the country's fastest growing racial group. A population of more than 20 million is expected to grow to 35 million by the year 2016. And despite the fact that APITA history is deeply intertwined with US history, it is often forgotten or ignored in both the classroom and in public discourse. APITAs have contributed to all sectors. We've contributed to labor activism, the fight against school desegregation, and being in the frontline work fighting COVID most recently. APITAs have forged solidarity with the Black, Latinx, and Native American communities as well. All right, in a moment, I am going to show a video. As you are watching this video, I would like you to kind of think about what you currently know or what you currently understand about APITA history. Given the time frame, we probably won't have time to discuss it, but hopefully this will jog your memory, or maybe you learned something out of watching this video as well. Oh, hopefully, there we go.
On March 16th, 2021, 6 women were among the victims of a horrific shooting in Georgia. They were grandmothers, mothers, daughters, sisters, and wives. They were killed because they were Asian. But anti-Asian violence is not new. It is part of our collective memory.
As the families in Georgia mourn and memorialize the lives of their loved ones, we remember the history of racism our community has faced. In 1875, the Page Act passes, banning Chinese women from entering the United States. It's the first federal law to limit immigration.
In 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act passes, prohibiting Asian immigrants from becoming U.S. citizens. Its discriminatory practices survived for over 80 years. In 1885, 28 Chinese Americans are lynched and murdered in Rock Springs, Wyoming.
1930, across California, hundreds of Filipino-American farm workers injured and scores killed by rioters. 1942, 120,000 Japanese Americans incarcerated in concentration camps by our own government.
1982, Vincent Chin beat to death by 2 men with a baseball bat right before his wedding. Mistaken for being Japanese, accused of stealing their jobs. 1989, 5 Vietnamese and Cambodian children killed, more than 30 wounded. Stockton, California.
In the wake of September 11, 2001, attacks against Muslims and South Asians surge. 2012, 6 Sikh Americans killed in a temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin.
This past year, almost 4,000 incidents of anti-Asian violence, including murders of our elders simply walking in their own neighborhoods.
Memory is the antidote to death. Solidarity is the answer to silence.
As activist Valerie Kaur once asked, what if this is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb?
Today, we birth something new, knowing it's up to all of us to keep each other safe and shine a light together.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Of course. So we know that COVID-19 has further highlighted and exacerbated the rate of anti-Asian hate. So at the Asian American Education Project, as well as other organizations, our goal is not to rewrite history, but to provide a more complete history of the United States, one that reflects the contributions and experiences of the PETA community. So I went over very quickly when I was showing you the website, but I will quickly give you just a quick little snapshot of just the key topics that are covered in our professional development workshops to kind of give you a glimpse of what it would be like. So we'll go ahead and move into citizenship here. So in the early days, citizenship rights were civil rights for the PETA community. For most of US history, PETAs were not able to immigrate and claim US citizenship. It was Wong Kim Ark, a Chinese restaurant worker who was born in the US and went to China for a visit in the 1890s. When he returned to the US, he was denied entry. He fought all the way up to the US Supreme Court to affirm birthright citizenship regardless of race and nationality of the parents for all Americans. Then we have civil rights. The most horrific violation of PETAs, of the civil rights of PETAs, is incarceration of the Japanese Americans. Almost the entire Japanese American population, which at the time was 120,000 of them, in the continental US were incarcerated for over 3 years. With identity, the main key topics that would be covered in the identity workshop would be on nationality, race, and ethnicity. So really emphasizing the nationality of being American, with race being the social construct and ethnicity being an additional identity marker. And continuing on with the identity topic, the PETA community generally does not like to be associated with the model minority myth because the myth disregards the diversity of the group and it also drives a racial wedge between Asians and other groups. It implies that other minority groups are not models, which is not true at all. We know that all communities have contributed meaningfully to our society. And so the identity topic in the workshop would really dive into not only knowing more about this, but knowing how to teach it to your students. And then with immigration. So prior to the passage of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965.
Laura, can you wrap up your comments in about 30 seconds?
Oh, yes. Okay. That's the immigration. I'm going to go ahead and skip for the sake of time here. So I do want to highlight that with the immigration topic, we do go over and address anti-Blackness sentiment that is often, unfortunately, within our PETA community. So this really shows how the Black community has really partnered up with the PETA community and vice versa. And then we have racism as well, which would be covered in another workshop. And then to wrap it all up, here is my slide with contact information. So if you have any questions, lingering thoughts, if you'd like to partner with us to, if you're an educator wanting to bring these PDs into your schools, you can definitely contact at either one of those email addresses and also visit the website. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Laura. It's worth the overrun time. You had a lot there. So our next presenter is Kate Lee, another person with a lot of credits to her name. Kate is the co-founder and executive director of Make Us Visible. She's also program manager for the AANHPI project that you just heard from Laura. And she serves on the board of directors for the Immigrant History Initiative. Now, she was also a K-12 curriculum editor for the PBS Asian Americans docuseries. Kate was born and raised in San Diego, and she currently resides in Connecticut, where she has been a middle school teacher for over 10 years. So turn it over to Kate.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm excited to share a little bit about Make Us Visible today. As mentioned earlier, I'm here today as one of the co-founders and the executive director of Make Us Visible, which is a coalition, a grassroots coalition of parents, students, and teachers who are interested in advocating for the inclusion of Asian American history in K-12 schools. A little bit more about myself. You all heard that I was born and raised in San Diego and now currently reside in the East Coast in Connecticut. I did my undergrad at UC Davis, and so that was actually my first exposure to Asian American history as an 18-year-old taking contemporary issues of Asian American studies with Professor Hamamoto in the fall of my undergraduate year. And I remember that was my first exposure to understanding just how incomplete the history I was taught influenced my experience in unpacking my racial identity as a kid. And so thankfully with that class, I was then able to start relearning Asian American history. I spent the entirety of my 20s and continued to do so every day, unpacking portions of my racial identity as well. In my conversations with parents, students, and teachers, especially in the last 2 years with Make Us Visible, what I heard was, engaging in conversations with people in their 30s, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and all of them had experiences similar to mine. Their very first exposure to Asian American history took place in college, and if not during college, later on in life. And so now they want to be able to talk to their students and or children about this experience. Then what happened was I started talking to people who were currently in college or who are in their 20s, and they were echoing the same sentiments to me, that their first exposure to Asian American history was in college. And that was when it really cemented everything for me, that we really need to do more and actually come together to change what the education process looks like as Asian Americans. Make Us Visible was founded in January 2021 by myself, 2 parents, and a student. And what started as a movement in Connecticut, where we thought maybe in a few years another state would learn about us and want to do the same thing. Quickly, it's now been a year and 10 months. We have passed 5 bills in 3 different states and have 8 active state chapters currently. We're preparing to launch 5 more in the next few weeks. And so it's just been really, really exciting. The next round of state chapters include Washington State, Virginia, Oklahoma, California, along with, I am blanking on which one, I think it's Colorado. Yes, we have so many coming in, and we actually currently have relationships with 31 states total. And our goal is to be able to engage in conversations with 50 states and get this done in 50 states. A little bit about Make Us Visible. We are based on 3 main pillars. So it's community, advocacy, and education. When we talk about education, we're talking about building relationships with districts and implementation. Quite frankly, you can begin implementing tomorrow. You can go shoot Laura an email from the Asian American Education Project and get started. You don't need policy to get this work done, though policy definitely raises awareness and makes it easier in some cases, but definitely not mandatory to have policy in place. With legislative advocacy, this is where Make Us Visible, we guide folks through the legislative legislative process. A lot of people, when they reach out to us, they've never voted before. They don't know who their state rep is. They don't know how to submit testimony, be it written or public. And this is where we walk you through that process. If you were to ask us which pillar was the most important out of the three, we would say community. For us, community building and community organizing is the main utmost goal that we need to focus on. The strength of our community building then directly impacts the strength of our advocacy and education efforts. I'm really excited to share that a few weeks ago, we were in South Florida to support our state chapter there with their first large-scale in-person event. And it was so empowering to see that it was immediately after Hurricane Ian, that people still drove miles and hours to get to North Miami Beach, where we all gathered to engage in a community dialogue. We had representation and leadership from 39 local Asian American organizations. We had elected officials, we had parents, students, and teachers and community members join in this event to talk about the importance of advocating for inclusive history. And we look forward to getting it done in Florida as well. We are a bipartisan coalition, and this is not meant symbolically. This truly every step of what we do, be it legislatively or communally, is bipartisan. We believe in engaging in conversations with everybody and meeting them where they're at. At the end of the day, for us, we can disagree on 99 things, but our hope is for the Asian American community to come together for our kids and for our elderly. When we formed Make Us Visible back in January of 2021, our hope was to use education as a long-term preventative measure in combating anti-Asian American hate, bullying, and violence. Our hope is for people to see us as neighbors, to know that we belong here. Very often, the Asian American history that is taught in schools, if it is taught in schools, is very West Coast based and also very trauma centered. And our hope is to be able to elevate the localized Asian American stories that exist within your neighborhood, your community, your state. Our hope is also to move away, not necessarily move away from trauma centered history, but to also amplify all the successes and all the civic contributions of Asian Americans. Our hope is to be able to change the narrative of Asian Americans, for them ultimately to see themselves differently, and for others to see ourselves differently as well, to know that we very much belong here in the United States of America, and we've contributed to the fabric of what is now the United States. We have many layers that I just mentioned. First, foremost, our priority is education and getting inclusive history into K-12 schools. Secondly, we also talked about public safety, that this is rooted in a need to protect our community, as attacks are underreported, but still very much happening day to day. And then our third layer, that was an unexpected byproduct of our efforts, is actually building political power. For folks to know you absolutely can speak up for what you believe in, for folks to know where the levers of power are. And so next time we don't have to wait for another Atlanta shooting, for people to be able to go ahead and engage in conversations with their legislators about what they need for their community. But we're really excited to continue this work. As I said, we have relationships with 31 states and aim to engage in conversations with all 50 states. If you guys are interested in starting something in Delaware, please let us know. We meet with every single person who expresses interest. And also, last but certainly not least, please feel free to follow us on social media, be it Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. Follow us and spread the word wherever you see fit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. Again, very impressive. Okay, our last speaker is Professor Hannah Kim. She was born in Pennsylvania, and she's coordinator of the History/Social Studies Education Program at University of Delaware. And she, along with other faculty, formed the Collaborative to Diversity Teacher Education at UD, which studies and suggests strategies to recruit and retain students from underrepresented groups in teacher education. Now, diversity in education remains a very strong interest in Professor Kim's work in teacher preparation and local K-12 schools. Professor Kim received her BA from Bryn Mawr and her PhD from UD. Over to you, Hannah, or Dr. Kim.
Please call me Hannah. Well, thank you for having me. And that's tough to be the last person in this lineup. I feel kind of a pressure here. I've been tasked to sort of bring this all together and kind of answer the question about, why do we need Asian American history? And so I thought a lot about this, like how can I say this in 5 minutes in a succinct way? So I'll throw out four reasons. One, I've always been a believer that knowledge is power. Knowledge is a way that we combat racism and discrimination, and this is the tool that the weapon that teachers wield is knowledge. And so, learning about different histories and different stories is one of the ways in which we try to attack racism and discrimination in this country. And if we look at the stats on Asian American students, this is very pressing. There was a 339% increase in anti-Asian hate crimes in 2021. In schools last year, 70% of Asian American students reported experiencing racism. In April of 2021, when schools started reopening, 7 out of 10 Asian students stayed home rather than go back to school. That was one of the most startling kind of statistics for me, higher than any other racial group, ethnic group. 7 out of 10 Asian students stayed home. So there certainly is a pressing need to address the racism and bullying in our schools and what our young people face. Second thing I'll propose is that the reason why we need Asian American history is because it's history. It's part of American history. It's hard to separate that out from the even though it is separated out, but it shouldn't be from the narrative of U.S. history. History of the United States is the history of people and groups have made this country, and Asian Americans are part of that. So on an intellectual level, this is just correct. This is accurate history to incorporate it into our U.S. history curriculum. The other thing I would say is that people are hungry to know more about this topic. I taught a class this year, and in fact, what I was just coming from was my history of anti-Asian racism. And in the class, I would say, there were students who were not Asian, and they just wanted to know more about the topic. They were curious. They are interested in race and racism, so they wanted to see where the intersections with other groups. Students who were of Asian ancestry, wanted to learn more about themselves. They had never, the common phrase, I never learned this before. I wanted to learn more about this history. People, whether old or young or old, they want to see themselves in the history. And so it's important that we teach history that reflects our student population and reflects the population in the United States. For those who maybe don't want to know or are not interested, or maybe they don't know they should know, curricular mandates have an effect. There's lots of evidence that I could point to of the effect of curriculum mandates on the consciousness of how students think about history. They're important. They have a clear effect on the way students can think about history. And so whether it's at a state level or a local level, having mandates that mandate, a type of history to be taught, or that Asian American history should be incorporated into the history curriculum, would have a profound effect. In terms of, let's see what my time is. I don't want to go over. Okay. Solutions. Again, I'm going to propose a couple things here for us to think about as a group. Certainly, there needs to be more education, professional development for teachers in order to integrate Asian American history into their curriculum. Align it with standards. There are resources that are slowly becoming more available. AANHPI is wonderful. I love their resources. It's really teacher friendly. I showed it to my student teachers. We were using some of the materials. It's great. But, for people here, maybe who aren't teachers, what can you do? I think there's a lot you can do. One, and this is kind of a broader sort of problem, I think, facing our country, but, we have a severe shortage of teachers in this country. So that's like a big issue that we have to face as a country. There's been a 35 to 40% drop in teacher education students in the last 5 years, and it's only getting worse. And so I would propose that people here, whether you are interested in teaching or teaching, we need to encourage young people to go into teaching. If I ask a room full of teacher candidates, student teachers, has anybody close to you ever discouraged you from becoming a teacher? Every student is going to raise their hand. Family member, a friend, a professor, a teacher told them, don't do it. Don't become a teacher. We need to stop that. We need to encourage young people, especially young people who want to make a difference in people's lives. And we need to encourage them to become teachers. In the same vein, I think we need to support educators. That's a really, I think, one of the most important issues facing us right now is this effort to take over education by certain groups who don't want teachers to talk about race or racism. And if we stop teachers from talking about race or racism, we're in trouble. I mean, this is an insult to our experience in this country. If we can't talk about racism. And so
can we do like 45 seconds?
Yes, absolutely. I'm on my last point. And we have to move beyond talking about holidays and foods, I think that if we focus on that as a way of thinking about Asian history, it's just another way of othering Asian Americans. We need to be able to have a frank conversation about racism. There are efforts to take over school boards, opt out of curriculum, trying to control school curriculum. And this is something that we can all address at the local level, influencing school board elections. I mean, it can happen with one person, and doesn't take a lot. And so I think we all have kind of a duty to look very closely at what happens right in our own neighborhoods, in our neighborhood schools, and our school districts, because that's where we can really make an impact on these conversations. And I'll end there.
Okay, thank you. So we are now into that segment of the program where we have a question and answer session. And we had initially thought that we would, invite questions from the audience, harvest them from the chat box. But I don't think I see many questions, if any. With that, I would say that we also have some set questions, which we were prepared in anticipation of this. And Su Chen, do you want to kick it off? These questions will be addressed to the panelists, okay?
First, I want to say that I just learned so much during the last hour or so. I really didn't start learning about Asian American history until I am way past 50 years old. Yeah, and then Hannah, you're so convincing. I'm an engineer. I'm actually thinking maybe I should change your profession to teaching. And in fact, really, during the last several years, I really became a strong believer in learning the Asian American history, even for myself. I'm first generation Asian American. I'm trying to figure out my own identity too, and that helps me to do so. So I started introducing a Asian American history lesson at the local Chinese school, because I strongly believe that needs to be taught. I certainly hope that it will expand to all the other, a lot of the K-12 schools as a regular curriculum, not as an individual effort from the teachers. So my question is, as we think about this, the Asian American history education, and then quite often I heard this term interconnect, I think intersectionality, about how this should not be taught by themselves, but really try to relate to other ethnic groups. So I would like to get the panelists' comment, thoughts about what's the best way to introduce Asian American history to the K-12 students. Anyone I want to take a stab at this?
Sure, I'll say a couple things. I mean, this is kind of a problem in the way we approach history. Instead of rethinking the narrative, we just add on like as little side notes, or literally in textbooks will be, the little sidebar off to the side, which only reinforces the idea that it's separate and different. I mean, this was done with, the way women are put into history textbooks. And so it gives students a kind of a distorted view of history instead of thinking about it as it's a one story, and so it's hard because people have to rethink the history that they've learned, and some of those resources don't help that are available. So it's a lot of burden upon teachers to go find those resources that will help them to rethink that. But Kate maybe has something to say on this. She's in the field teaching.
Thank you, Hannah. It's so many things that Hannah mentioned when she was speaking resonated with me as a K-12 teacher. I'm just entering my 11th year as a middle school teacher. I teach 5th through 8th grade Mandarin. And I think for us, from our conversations that we've had with key stakeholders, and in this case, it's parents, students, and teachers, it begins with conversation. Because at the end, all of this, regardless of if it's just implementation or if you want to pass policy or you want to do both, it's about creating buy-in. And people aren't going to listen if you're yelling at them or if you're really angry. And maybe we're all very angry and feeling a type of way. But what we've found is having conversations, talking about what does it mean to be Asian American. And I think something that's been really interesting is seeing how curriculum can be changed on a K-12 level specifically. So I think right now there's a slight, I don't know if the term is misconception, but there's an understanding currently that maybe a watered down version of Asian American studies then automatically becomes K-12 material. And I wish that were true. I wish it was so easy that you could just boom, we have it. But in reality, there's so much to consider when you're developing curriculum for K-12. You have to think about where students are developmentally, cognitively, what can they understand? And so at the end of the day, elementary school students, they're taught values like, what does it mean to be kind? What does it mean to be a neighbor? What is fair and what's not fair? What's right and what's not right? And so they're very concrete thinkers. And then the ways that they're able to then further elevate their understanding of said material in middle school and high school, it'll then become more sophisticated as well. But in terms of what we can do, engaging in conversations first, reach out to your classroom teacher, reach out to your principal, reach out to the superintendent, attend a Board of Education meeting, speak at a Board of Education meeting, better yet, run for office at a Board of Ed. That's what our Pennsylvania State Chapter did first. And so they were able to elect AAPIs into office for their local Board of Eds. And that's also a way to get your voice heard on a local level, especially. And I think what we found about this work is it's very localized. Education, it's deeply decentralized in every level. So at the end, it largely, your starting point is your backyard, your district first. And that's what we tell our advocates and how we guide them through their advocacy efforts as well.
And so this is Nancy. I can speak about that at a state level. I totally agree with everything that Kate said and Hannah said. So that's what we talk about inclusion. Inclusion is implementing that concept of diversity and making sure it's equitable, right? It's not just, okay, we have a page on Asian history in a history textbook. It's really talking about where it aligns in like the whole concept of American history. And American history is not linear. It's also not simple. So having said that, there was a question about, are there bills that have been introduced in Delaware? And I think that's probably our last step, because I think what we need to first do is have that conversation, like Kate says, at the local level. Not only do you need to get buy-in from the larger population, you need to get buy-in from your own community, right? And I mean, the whole concept of making us visible is growing up as an Asian American, the whole concept was you didn't want to be visible. You wanted to be just like everybody else. And you have to change our culture about that and recognize that our history is just as important as anybody else's, and to talk amongst ourselves and empower ourselves to be able to say that, and then bring that at each level. The great thing about Delaware, it's small. Everybody knows everybody else. You can connect with everybody and have that broader conversation at the coffee house and at the pubs. So that would be my recommendation, to start at that level, just like Kate said, but being able to say that we can probably accelerate that just because of our size.
Yeah, I just want to comment that, yes, I'm not aware of any bill that has been introduced so far to add Asian history into public school curricula. And last year, I think there was a bill passed mandating African American history to be part of the K-12 history curriculum or social studies. I think a couple years back, there might be another one related to Hispanic community. So again, I echo what Nancy said. I think first we will have to get folks buy-in, and then going back to some of the Asian American history education is very West Coast centric or whatnot. And in fact, as you're learning more about Asian American history, I actually came across a memoir by Fei Hong Ying, who actually is was a local resident, and she passed away quite a few years back. She grew up in China and then happened to also work for DuPont for a couple of years, like I did. So that was a very touching memoir about her personal journey grew up in China, went to Taiwan, and then came to the United States. So there are a lot of those local, definitely experience of Asian Americans that we can try to really also learn from and then share, and then start really, I think, getting the words out and get our community really galvanized, and then push it for the promote the Asian American history education. Any other comments or thoughts? I saw a couple of them. I think
there's one from Karen Barker. She says Delaware, but because Delaware is so small, why not contact our state senators and reps right away?
I think that's a great question. I can talk a little bit about it, but I also don't want to dominate the airtime here. Honestly, I think from our perspective, there's a lot of potential with Delaware. It is small, but it's also mighty. And I think engaging in conversation still is very important first. Something we do with all of our state chapters before they launch is we run narrative workshops with them. Right now, we're doing that with our Washington state chapter. And so we've been meeting every single week to go through why, we're all committed to this work. And the reason why those narrative workshops are really important because it serves as the basis for your conversations with your state senators and reps, and anyone that wants to get involved. And so I think there's definitely momentum that can be made in Delaware. Also in conversations, we learned so much about each other and even the state. And I think, not to use Washington again, but it's the most recent because we meet with them every Monday night. We were able to learn that one of our volunteers there who identifies as Filipino American. His granduncle was the first Asian American to own land in the state of Washington, and took it all the way to the state. That's Decano v. State. And so that is a perfect example of localized history that we want to be able to uplift to make sure everyone in that state knows about. And my bet is that after a few conversations, I'm sure we can find localized history, Asian American history for the state of Delaware too. If anyone wants to talk more about the legislative and advocacy process in terms of brainstorming approaches and strategies, always happy to help out. Jeff Gu, our policy director, played a really big role in ensuring that the bills in New Jersey, Connecticut, and Rhode Island were passed, and especially Connecticut being the first state to do so with a state-funded mandate. It remains the first and only state mandate to have a fiscal note attached to it. And so that is our goal with bills moving forward to ensure that there's state funding allocated for curricular mandates.
Well, suddenly not enough time to even, you all brought up so many good questions and so many possibilities. And, my thing rolling around my head is like, so what is the one small step we can take? And it seems like we have a possibility here of regrouping, and starting to, begin the discussion. So I people are interested, as Kate just mentioned, I think it'd be helpful to gather together and make it a commitment to meet minimally like an X at some frequency. Okay. So not to belabor the point, because our time is up. This has been an extremely valuable and informative session. I don't know what I was expecting, but it has been awesome. So I want to thank each and every panelist for their contribution to today's event, and also great questions from the audience. So you have the way to contact the presenters if you want to. If you don't have it, contact us at socialjustice@uufn.org. So with that, once again, thank you, everybody. I'm really grateful that you all made time to be here.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care. Bye. Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Thanks, everyone. This was wonderful.